Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Ruthven from the University of Strathclyde, and I'd like to welcome you to the third workshop from the Scottish Network on Digital Cultural Resources Evaluation. We should have called it something shorter. So this is the Scottish University's Insight Institute. There's tea and coffee at the back, there's toilets in the back wall. There is no fire alarm planned for today. So if a fire alarm goes off, it is real, and please run screaming out the door there, leaving everything behind you. Oops. We don't charge for crockery. So this is the third workshop in this series. The first workshop, we looked at models for digital access to digital cultural heritage information. The second workshop, we looked at crowdsourcing, co-creation and co-curation. And today we look at evaluation impact, which are both very important topics for academics and practitioners and for the people that fund both of us. And very rich topics. In both Glasgow and Strathclyde, we are interested in these topics both from the perspective of doing evaluations of systems and heritage institutions, but also from the perspective of understanding and developing new methodologies for looking at how we evaluate cultural resources and how we think about the notion of value in what we do every day. And these are both very rich, very detailed, and very interesting topics. And Maria, who gets all the credit, has put together a very, very interesting program of speakers and discussion points that we'll look at today. We're going to have some presentations to get us thinking, and then we're going to have some discussion later on so we can share experiences, think about important issues, and how we might take this discussion forward as a community. So I'm going to pass over to Maria from Glasgow, who's going to give us some more details on what we're going to do today. Thank you, Maria, for organising this event.
Thank you, Ian, because welcome everybody. Good morning from me as well. I'm Maria Economou. You all know me by now, but there are a few new faces as well. And Ian was lying. He doesn't make a habit of it. It was really a team effort, as the whole network is really. And as you remember, we said the last couple of times, I don't want to repeat things, but for those of you who were in the last workshops, just very briefly, the idea of the network was trying to put not just academics, but also key cultural institutions in Glasgow, and also work with other partners and participants beyond to try to use the Kelvin Hall as one of the case studies to explore really wider issues about the use of digital resources that I think are of interest to all of us in different capacities. So we wanted to combine latest research, but also the need for maybe skill development, the issues that they face every day for practitioners from different cultural heritage institutions. And as Ian explained, we looked a little bit at the first one of where we are in the field, some key influential projects, some of them quite old, but still shape things and policies and influence different developments. The last one with crowdsourcing and co-curation tried to see how together with different users we create different digital applications and what are the issues then about reintegrate them in the cultural institutions. Today it's much more about the how and methodologies. So it's trying to use different range of methods from different disciplines, and this is reflected in the profile of our speakers, about how can we find out after we design with a lot of resources and effort this digital tools or applications or digital libraries. Even the terminology here needs to be discussed. I think it's something that might come out from today about what kind of digital things we're talking about, but much more about how do we find out how different users are using them, how can we evaluate them. The evaluation from different perspectives and pressures, whether it's the academics in the UK, for example, with the REF, or in cultural heritage from grant-giving bodies and people higher up in the organization, we all in different capacities have to record and explain where resources have been allocated and how successful these endeavors have been. Because for any of you who've dealt with digitization or putting interpretive or different kinds of applications together in the digital world, you all know, especially in cultural heritage, where the standards for quality are so high, it's a lot of effort. It's almost always teamwork, and it's not always very easy to grasp what's actually happening after it's up there on the web or off your hands, it's been completed. How are these different? And because you all here reflect and bring quite a lot of diverse users, from quite young school children to specialized researchers. It's a lot of different groups that a lot of these applications are trying to reach. So what we try to do with our talks in the morning later on is, as you'll see, we'll have a range from mobile apps, larger databases and image bases, or even use of computers and digital media within exhibitions, and how different researchers and practitioners have gone about trying to record how users have actually used them, and what can we actually find out about that. Because it's not just about accountability and filling in a report for a grant-giving body. It's much more importantly, I think, about getting the information to help us design future ones, help inform our practice. It's very rare for the things that I've done myself or been involved with. It's almost impossible to do it right, 100% right from the beginning. And this is often a political, the whole evaluation cycle brings up a lot of political, with a capital and usually small p, questions and critical ones about policy and strategy. But I think it's very important that you see when it's successful, where people are actually putting it in a cycle and an everyday working practice. And we'll also see it's a different range of evaluation that the speakers will talk about, from quite small to really quite large. And there's a question there about resources. A lot of people are very keen to get on and do evaluation, but don't feel very comfortable that they have the skills or the staff or the resources to do it themselves. And it's a little bit maybe trying today to demystify the process and try to get some guidelines about which of these things can you actually start yourself, and when is a good time to collaborate maybe with others and bring specialists in. And how can you incorporate then the lessons learned from all of this in how you go about, whether it's doing remedial evaluation for your existing project or putting the lessons in for your next one. Ian mentioned value, which brings us very nicely as a bridge to the next workshop. Today is looking a little bit about the methods and also how frustrating sometimes the limitations of evaluation is. So it's how great and important. I hope you get away with the lessons. We should all try in different ways to do it, but also that it's not the answer to everything. And I think a wider question that might come up today, it was definitely in our discussions when we're talking with the different speakers and within the group, but also in some of the previous workshops, what came up was also, what are we actually recording? What are the criteria? I mentioned, for example, the REF or different grant-giving bodies, and about impact, which is the other word that's been so often used and sometimes abused around these days. Is it just about impact of these tools? And that's why we named the next one Moving from Impact to Value, to try to talk a little bit about what should this kind of resources be doing, and what's the best way to really assess how they affect different kind of users at different levels. Kind of just to set the theme a little bit, I won't talk too much more. Just to explain, you've got in front of you different sets of paper. The program is obvious. You'll see at the bottom, at the very, very bottom, there is a little sign. You probably, I'm a square, for example, doesn't say anything about my personality. You might be circles, arrows, triangles, and I'm not so sure what else you are. This might be relevant for the afternoon after the lunch, where you try to find the people of the same shape, and that will be your group. But we're not too dictatorial about it. We might have to reshape things depending on maybe some people couldn't stay afterwards or whatever. So we'll tell you more about, you know, what you are in your group and your shape group later. But below that you have also the handler for Twitter. If you haven't found out, there's the free, if you try Wi-Fi, it's the guest Wi-Fi you all have. You don't need any passwords, you should be able to connect. And feel free to tweet. It's the Scott Digi, because as Ian rightly said, it's a very long name, so it's usually Scott Digi Cultural Heritage, but we got rid of the CH, so the handle is just Scott Digi W1. apart from the participants list, the orange thing that you have afterwards, an evaluation workshop wouldn't be complete without an evaluation form. So give it a chance to listen to what the people say. It's very important. We tried the other few times and it worked really well to bring in this. You'll see from the participants list, there's a diversity of organizations and at different levels as well. Some people are early career or even students, and other people actually have been managing these things and have responsibility for quite wide resources. So we found from experience it's really valuable to have the mix and have people around the tables bringing their own feelings and experiences and what they would like out of this process afterwards in the discussions. And then after we do the group discussion after lunch, we come back and we report back what each group, their main points were and summarize. So for the evaluation, Rosie, who was there, and we all owe a big thanks to her because she was behind the scenes and you all communicated probably by email with her by now. She was tirelessly helping, as well as having just submitted her PhD and trying to write a lot of conference articles, kind of juggling a lot of balls, preparing, putting the workshop together. So she'll be around, not with her whip, but with a smile, trying to get your evaluation forms at the end of the day. If you do need to rush off, she'll have an envelope at the end there. We will try to video record, and so I'll ask the speakers, they'll have to kind of play with this and put it on. I know it can be a bit cumbersome, but we had several people from the States and from other places who couldn't make it, and although Twitter is useful, we'll also put a blog up for later on, and I hope things didn't die on us. I think we might have a bit of a flicker. I couldn't manage to get rid of that, so I hope it won't be too difficult on the eyes. But we'll try to put this, the videos up on YouTube for those who couldn't be here. I think it's the worst, so according to my son, who just turned 12, it's the worst number of people clicking on the YouTube channel he can see, because it's not like some of the rappers he likes, but it's still a very useful record, especially if you're doing evaluation. I found with some of the old workshops, there was so much of a nice buzz and activity on the day, but actually later on, a few weeks later, settling in when you let the dust settle to actually go back and look at some of the issues. And we're also thinking and discussing within the group, so we're open to suggestions from all of you about also possible publications and otherwise from disseminating the word from this. So any kind of recording and kind of going around of what's been discussed today will be really useful. This is going scaringly worse. So I think that's probably my clue to pass on to Jen. I will introduce our first speaker of the day and blame it on her. Dr. Jen Ross from the University of Edinburgh. She's the lead investigator of the Artcasting project, and I thought this was a very interesting project exploring whether some of the digital tools I mentioned, for example, mobile apps or mobiles, can actually be used for the evaluation process itself. So not just in terms of a digital resource, but to be used to try to capture, in this case, engagement with the arts and also with anybody involved with museums and cultural heritage. We all know a traditionally very hard audience, teenagers, but not exclusively, I think. She will tell you more about this. This is a very interesting HRC project with different partners, but she'll tell you more of the details about that.